Hello, everyone. I think we are live. I was just making sure that it's showing onto our Facebook. Just give me 1 second to make sure that we are okay. We are live. This is awesome. All right. Well, thank you all for being here. I'm going to do something really quick. Here we go. Okay, I think we are set. So thank you for sharing this space with me today. I want to explain who I am. It will show on the screen. My name is Diana Aguilar. I am the Community Outreach Coordinator for our YWCA here in Yakima. And today I am starting our first conversation in light of our Teen Dating Violence Awareness Month. Hopefully you guys have an option to do the closed captioning. And please know this conversation is recorded. So for some of our adults around, providers, young people that might be viewing this video, if you weren't unable to make it on time, it's still here. It will be live for quite some time, as well as a link will be added to our YouTube. So hopefully that will be something that you can invest some time in watching or reviewing as many times as you need to. The next following class conversation will be happening the 23rd. So that is next Wednesday. So if you want to share that or plug that into someone who you feel might be of need of this conversation, feel free to let them know that it's happening next Wednesday. So this will kind of follow through what we have a conversation of today. I want you all to also remember times have been changing in regards to relationships and making social connections with people since the pandemic started. So any positive, healthy relationship to us is very important, and understanding that some of our homes or household spaces may not be very safe for a lot of people. So we want to be kind and respectful of everyone who's going to be reading or viewing this conversation today or in the next days and so forth. I also want you guys to please do remember to take care of yourself when needed. If I need to take a breath, get some fresh air. If there's any feelings that are coming forward, please do make sure that we don't ignore them. Take care of yourselves and others around you. If you need to speak to someone after conversations, feel free to connect with us directly via email, social media, or whatever that looks like as well. Take advantage of the resources that I will share with you today, nationally, chat, live sessions, texting, anything that's going to help you get connected with someone. Please do take advantage of that. Because I am facilitating this on my own, I will try my best to make sure I am reading through any comments or questions, both on the webinar session and as Facebook Live. So the big idea today is that together we want to create a healthy and safe future for all of our young people. And we are going to do this by teaching skills for healthy relationships, creating some awareness, sharing information, hopefully working on creating a safer place that can embody that for our young people. And of course, for all our surrounding communities and that are young youth involved, such as school, public spaces, and family spaces. So the big idea is that we all acknowledge that we are in relationships 100% of the times throughout our lives. As a tween, as a teenager, as a young adult, or as an adult, or even in my age. The big idea is that we all do 100% of the times unhealthy behaviors to people and others that we care and love for. However, the goal of starting these conversations is to, of course, have that awareness, identify some of those healthy and unhealthy signs, know some of those warning signs, and know what are some indicators to look for. Start those conversations or have a guide of how to start those conversations, and know that at 100% we can change our unhealthy behaviors and be able to adapt them to more loving and respectful behaviors with those that we are around with. Our mission at the YWCA is to provide a safe, nurturing place where we can help empower all victims of domestic violence to become self-reliant survivors. And that also includes our young people, even after, from the age of 16 or even younger, that have faced or have witnessed or experienced some form of violence or intimate partner violence in their own households. So my mission as the educator and our outreach staff is to be able to bring these to attention and be able to talk about prevention forms or ways that you can get involved, talk about that, and also guide you through those starter conversations and being able to promote those healthy relationships, shift culture of conversations in our schools, in a public space, in your own house, whatever that looks like. We'll talk a little more deeper, and especially amongst our friendships, our peers, peer supports, our educators, our providers, our parents, and our community. All right, so moving on. There will be a lot of talking, so I will be taking some pauses here and there. So today's conversations, talking points, are going to talk about our Teen Dating Violence Awareness Month campaigning, which this theme this year is Talk About It. We want to talk about the importance of why we need to bring this into a conversation with young people. Why is it so important? What is teen dating violence? Forms of dating violence? How big is the problem? How to help someone who is in a very abusive relationship, as well as helping someone who may be causing harm. And then lastly, we'll share some resources and leave some space for Q&As. So in today's topic, I also want you guys to practice participating safely. If that's something that you are doing, please make sure that we're in a safe space or we're surrounded by safe people that we can talk afterwards if we need to. Be respectful of your physical space and emotional state where you might be. We are all in different journeys or parts of our life, so let's be respectful and kind of that. Take care of yourself again, and know that the space is open for any questions or responses, no right or wrong answers. And ultimately, the focus is to just really be observant and keeping some of this information on a notebook, or going back and getting in some guidance from viewing the video one more time, later down the road when you actually feel and are competent to, or are comfortable to start these conversations with the young person. So again, I'll talk here on the next conversation slide of what are some of the topics that we want to target for the next class. So these are the main talking points that we're going to introduce for today's conversation only. And then next week on the 23rd at the same time, 4 p.m., we'll have other talking points to share with you all. And then ended up with sharing handouts and hopefully a resource handbook that a parent, an adult, an influencer, anybody, you watching this video can utilize as a helpful resource. Okay, so again, thank you for following us on social media, liking our post, sharing our post, viewing our stories, both on Instagram as well as Facebook. Part of this annual month-long awareness campaign is to really push on advocacy and education and the sharing of meaningful conversations and tips or ways that we can prevent dating violence, abuse before it even starts, or starting at an early age before our young people begin dating. Now, some of these conversations will also fit in friendships or related to our family members or just any peer individual who is part of your life and you have a relationship with. So I'm not here to educate you about just teen dating, but the big focus of the month-long campaign with teen dating violence awareness is to further prevent teen dating violence. So every month of February, young people and their loved ones joins across the nation for a national effort to raise awareness about the issue of teen dating violence. Congress has actually declared this month to be National TDVAM, so Teen Dating Violence Awareness Month, and prevention as of the year 2010. So it hasn't been declared for that long, but it did start back in the year 2010. So topics like dating abuse, unhealthy relationships, healthy relationships, warning indicators or red flags that can lead to someone becoming abusive are all part of that social campaigning for people to be aware of that, and important to really challenge the authenticity that we have of young people sharing their own experiences and stories of what they might be facing already or have faced, recently in their first dating relationship, or they're thinking of starting to date. And to understand that dating abuse is happening across our nation, and there's millions of people that are being affected by it every single year, specifically our young people. So that's very important to acknowledge and really be aware. Youth are telling us, and when I say us, I'm talking about educators and also trusted adults that they've gained, that they're craving and they want these conversations to happen. Believe it or not, they really are engaging, and they really want to know more, hear your stories, your experiences, and really have some engaging and, what would be the brave conversation, right, as an adult that we can present to a young person. So I hope that this month you have gained or will gain some tools and have learned more about this movement. And throughout, the years or the coming months and weeks, you have a little more education and awareness from various sources, resources, connections that hopefully we'll be able to connect you with that can help you get that started with a young person. All right, because this year's mission, or more so the theme of the conversation, is to talk about it through Love is Respect's national programming online and their youth council, we are going to talk about it. So let's begin. Again, please note that the class will be recorded. The intention is to cover just the main topics for today. For the following week, I just want to give a little blur of presenting some creative positive connections with youth. There will be optional handouts. I'm going to present also a really cool resource of Talk Now cards that can guide you through some really valuable questions that can be utilized by you, or just a sample of the questions, frequently asked questions by adults, parents, or providers, as well as young people that are joining or viewing the video. And then we'll kind of touch also on understanding and how to best respond to those warning signs when they are visible, because often we know some of those abusive, unhealthy signs are not always visible to the human eye, right? Or often are not physically visible to us. So, and then we'll close it off with some supporting forms of someone choosing to harm, and how can we support them as well. Okay, so why focus on young people, you may ask? So for me, not only research, experiences, stories, statistics really answer that question to me. I believe it's really important, real, and so relevant to share this with you, to start that with you because of these statistics. These are some of the reasons why I'm on a mission to be able to share more education and be able to share this out with my community and spread it along with whoever I can, or whoever can help me share this information. We have to identify and really understand that dating abuse is happening, and the effects are just not getting any smaller. The effects are happening long-term, short-term, and are just really, really emotionally well-being with their safety affecting our young people living in this nation and even in this state. So first, I want to just share some of the statistics that you see on the screen. So nearly 1 in 3 teens, 1 in 9 men, 1 in 4 women, and nearly 1 in 2 trans and non-binary people will be in an abusive relationship during their lifetime. And for our young teens, that's before the age of 18. We also know that nationally, it's said that 1 in 3 teens between the age of 11 to 17 are affected either through physical abuse, emotional, verbal, and sexual among their dating partners. And again, this is before they're 18. We also know that every year, nearly 1.5 million high school students nationwide are experiencing physical abuse from a dating partner. Again, from experiences and also research, young people are at a very enormous risk for interpersonal violence. Dating violence not only is it dangerous, but it's also very devastating to a young person's emotional health and safety. So teens who do experience any form of dating violence tend to show higher rates of drug alcohol use, school dropouts, high risk to unhealthy sexual behaviors or encounters, especially with a dating partner, and also have a higher risk for acts of violence and attempts to suicide. So just in the state of Washington, I saw a statistics of Washington girls across all racial groups are more likely than boys to experience emotional harm in their homes, such as anxiety, depressive feelings, the feels of just unsafe by a person that they are dating, but also bullying in school and harass in social media. So as you can see, those impacts are real, valid, and just very heartbreaking to know that they're happening and they're present. All right, so what is dating violence? So dating violence is a pattern of destructive behaviors used to exert power and control. Oftentimes that could be through means of isolation, fear, intimidation, or just really any form of power and control towards the partner. It's defined as those behaviors that can be physical, sexual, emotional, through digital, so that could be technology, financially controlling forms, just really with that intention to cause harm or any form of violence within that dating relationship. I will share, it is true that teens and young adults can well experience very similar forms of relationship harm in comparison to our adults or family in the household for domestic violence cases. However, the presence of some of these unhealthy behaviors tend to exert a bit of a longer term effect for young people in comparison to someone who might be experiencing that in a household environment. So for instance, a young person can have a bit of a harder time understanding that difference between unhealthy and a healthy relationship, or understanding that someone acting jealous can be in a very unhealthy way, or understanding the difference between healthy jealousy and unhealthy jealousy, or seeing it as a way of someone just really being there for them or caring, or just trying to protect them as a meaning of love, but really as a use of a controlling tactic to manipulate or really intimidate you in that way. And that could also lead to isolation, which we'll talk about more when you kind of go through the forms of violence. So, I mean, still talking about dating violence, we know young people, especially between the ages of 11 and 14, are at a developmental age where they are transitioning to a new friendship or new peer support groups, such as sports or clubs. Sometimes those relationships are set most important than having close or open relationships that are honest and real with parents or just family members. Peer influences also during this developmental stage are increasing those peer pressuring or influences with their peers in school or through those sport clubs. I mean, young people are still learning how to control those impulses or even understand when an adult is trying to guide them to maintain those positive relationships, and with simply just talking about friendships, or because there is so many pressures, not only in the social realm, but also media, television, music. I mean, pop culture is just a really big peer influence that can be very pressuring for them, of not understanding what's real and what's unreal. And of course, understanding that power within a relationship is, it exists in many ways, and an unhealthy imbalance of power can come from any age, gender, race, identity, class, or other factors. So youth who are victims of any form of dating abuse are more likely to experience some of the symptoms of depression, again, anxiety, and the thinking of attempts to suicide, engage in unhealthy behaviors like the use of substance, tobacco, or alcohol. So again, having that experience or victimization of dating violence can ultimately set the state for, problems in the future with future relationships for a young person, including intimate partner violence, sexual violence, assault. This can be an example if we have a high school student that perhaps was, physically harmed by their dating partner or sexually harmed by their dating partner. They can be at a higher risk of victimization once more in their college years, as well as a higher risk of victimization even after their college years, so as an adult or as a professional. All right, so taking a breath here. When we think of being in a healthy relationship or really any abusive behaviors that's, exerted from one partner to the next, things often may not feel quite of making sense or quite as possible. I would say, your world as a person who's been victimized tends to feel very narrow. Opportunities to even hang out with people that you love and care for can ultimately also narrow down. Ultimately understanding that this form of dating harm or relationship harm is really a big loss of somebody's self-autonomy. So the independence of being able to be yourself or being able to have no doubts of making your own decisions, choices, respect for your interests and hobbies, all that stuff that every person deserves and should be respected of tends to be decreased of that respect. So becomes, disrespected and not as equal as you would have that expectation for it to be from anybody who cares for you and loves for you in any form of relationship, especially in a dating relationship. So I want to talk to you about some of those forms of abuse and more in relation to teen dating violence or our young population. When we think about financial abuse, so among young people, this can look very different depending on their own financial independence or access. So examples can be perhaps one partner is always expected to pay for movies or the food, and one partner may always be asking the other partner to borrow money and just really never pays them back. This can also show when a partner is encouraged or perhaps pressured into skipping class or calling in sick for work if they do have a job at that age, or just really any activities, kind of bailing on some of those activities with other peers and more just exerting that time for that partner. So overall, this abuse can have very long-term effects on a young person's education and often career path and possibly financial stability / insecurities. Excuse me. The next one you'll see underneath financial abuse is also stalking. So just being repeatedly watched, monitored, followed, harassed through social media, texting, calls. An example could be those 100 texts that you get per day, or requesting for them to be sharing their location at all times. Could also be a form of maybe not being aware that they're actually sharing their location as a way of stalking, or having to share their, what's the word I'm looking for? They're offline or online when they are on their social media, and then the other partner having most access to that. And again, understanding that some of this abuse could happen offline and online, such as, online dating or just connections on social media. And that kind of leads on to the next term, digital abuse. So let's say your teen or a young person shares that their partner went through their phone, read their messages, or has escalated to ask them to share their passwords if they really love them, or share their passwords because now they're official in dating, or has forced them in that sense also to enable their location so they know all of their whereabouts. Or partner has also shared that, there's been some questions brought to them of sharing private photos. And then without consent or permission, they find out their partner has shared those photos with friends or peers in their schools. I mean, we know that's definitely a violation of privacy. And a lot of those digital abuse forms that are happening with pictures do have legal consequences. So we want to make sure that we understand some of those consequences through our legal system, and of course know what could happen if those are shared with someone not giving you consent. So with that also in mind, we're talking about the threats that could be digitally happening. So if it's a texting threat, if it's something on Messenger, you know, a partner can be utilizing that technology format to share those threats of harming themselves if they don't respond, or harming themselves if they break up with them through a text or through a social media message. Again, some of those tactics that are not always physically visible can be happening through technology. And I know that's a really big one, especially since the pandemic started, when, you know, we were really invested in being on our phones most of the time, and that it being the only way that we can connect or FaceTime or really chat with the people that we love and care for. So there will be a conversation for us to talk about safety tips when it comes to technology use and a way that someone could exert those controlling tactics or messages through social media. So we will keep you posted on those, or just simply at the end, you know, feel free to send me an email and I'm happy to share those with you. Other forms of abuse include emotional. So these are your non-physical damaging behaviors, like the insults, calling names, belittling, screaming, making you doubt your choices and ideas, opinions, or just decisions overall, or constantly monitoring and just feeling like you're stuck or helpless. Among young people, this can look like perhaps you overhear a young person telling a friend, always making them feel guilty, or they feel like it's always their fault, or they feel like they're sounding crazy or imagining things. That is very relatable to the term gaslighting. As we know, it's a very common emotional tactic that's used to cause harm, to make someone feel like they're losing their mind or just feeling guilt for things that might be occurring badly for the other person, and taking that blame for it, deflecting that responsibility on themselves and not really on the person that is accounted for it. And this form of emotional abuse tends to also create someone feeling smaller in that relationship, making light of what's really happening, you know, making those excuses for the other partner, just really doubting that it's not your fault to someone choosing to abuse you or causing harm to you. The next term on there is physical abuse. So this is any physical act form that is never okay or should never be a choice. However, it's important to ask questions like, what does it look like when you and your partner argue? If you have observed some, you know, unspoken marks or bruises, or you witnessed that their partner was being too physical, like pulling on too hard or marking them on the arms, or constantly having some marks on their necks, on the neck, especially when they're having disagreements or they're having conversations where they might break up or might not break up. So once you find out more, you can always, you know, talk about it in ways that those conversations can happen safer, because again, any intention to cause harm physically should never be a choice. However, it is a form of abuse as well, as a way to intimidate and inflict fear on someone through any of these physical acts that are unwanted. The next one on the list is form of sexual abuse. So this is a term of any unwanted sexual activity, being coerced to have sex or intercourse with their partner that is not willingly or given consent to, you know, such as any sexual touching, assault, or perhaps the controlling method of giving them a reason not to use condoms or contraceptives, or just any preventative measure to pregnancy. That can be like a way of tampering with those options and choices that the other partner has and should have. And that's definitely another, sexual tactic of really intervene, of being able to safety plan or being way too involved with someone and letting them know, hey, I have this, and this is the reason why we can't use a condom. So that's a form of coercion, which leads on to a form of sexual harm. Okay, I'm taking a pause here just to see if we have any questions, comments, concerns. Again, I know these topics can be very hard and difficult, and for any young people watching this video, it can feel confusing. And if it is confusing, I encourage you to let somebody know and talk about it, or let them know, like, I really want to learn more. Because this had happened to my friend, or I experienced it myself when, I first met this person, or often if my friend is doing such behaviors towards me, I also want to have a trusted adult, whoever that looks like, if it's a counselor, teacher, a coach, your parent, someone of your peer groups, a best friend, just anybody that you can share this conversation to. I encourage you to make sure that you have at least one person in your life that you can do that with. And if it's somebody on a national hotline or through chat or with our team, great. All right, so moving along, how big is this problem? So, just to kind of bring it into the perspective of teens, often we think some behaviors like teasing or someone name calling you are normal, or just part of what a relationship looks like, or what I've seen on TV and movies and what I'm hearing on songs, or just the idea of if I don't have any drama or arguments, I'm not having a good relationship with someone, or if my partner is not showing that they're jealous, that means they don't care or love me. So these are some of the behaviors that we as adults, or you as a parent, provider, get to have with them and let them know that these could seem normal and could be presented as okay on TV and social media, but they're not okay in real life or in your real relationships. So we want to be responsible of and kind of taking that expectation to talk about those, and why is it not okay for someone to show this form of jealousy in a form that's controlling and monitoring, and just seem careless in that way. So really talking about some serious forms of explanations of why these behavior choices are not okay and should not be tolerated. So we know many of our young people do not report unhealthy actions or just any form of abuse that someone has done to them. And there are reasons why, right? We are afraid to tell someone, or we might feel guilty or ashamed, or we feel like, we're the ones that caused them or provoked them to get mad, or just didn't see the right thing to make you feel happy or pleased for that day. No matter what that was, we all need that person, right, to be accountable and to be responsible for what they chose and decided that it was an option for them to treat you that way. So over the years, we've seen only that about 33%, so that's like 1/3 of our teens ever really tell anyone in their lives about something they've experienced, or perhaps sharing that 50% of our teens will often tell you that they know someone who has shared or disclosed to them that they were physically, sexually, verbally abusive in a dating relationship, present, former, or past, and just really didn't know how to help or intervene. These are some statistics that were brought to attention from our National Coalition Against Domestic Violence. So also, how big is the problem? So data from the Center of CDC, Youth Risk Behavior Survey show that nearly 1 in 11 female identified teens and male high school students report ever having experienced some form of physical dating violence in the last 12 months, as well as 1 in 8 female and 1 in 26 male high school students report having experienced sexual dating violence in the last year. So again, We know dating abuse is happening, we know it's present, and we know the effects are across the board with our tweens, teens, and young adults. Just in the state of Washington, I'll share some of what you see on the slide. Like I said, girls are witnessing at a higher rate that violence intimately in their households compared to boys when it comes to those household situations. 1 in 4 girls are made to feel unsafe by a person they were dating. This is especially true for 1 in 3 girls of color. Women ages 16 to 24, so this could be the age group between high school and college years, are 3 times most vulnerable and higher risk to experience form of sexual, physical abuse in their intimate relationships. So, the impact is large, again, across all age groups, as well as shown on the screen. By the 12th grade, nearly 1 in 3 white and Hispanic/Latina and 1 in 2 American Indian Alaska Native girls have been forced into sexual situations. So this is even, again, before the age of 18. So we know it's happening and we know the effects are enormous. So the problem is there. It's happening. All right, so I want to share in this conversation some common indicators. So what are some cues, maybe some behaviors that I want to be observing or observant of a young person in my life or in my household? So make sure that, if this is something that you want to take a screenshot of, feel free to do so. This will be shared with you all at the end of the next class in a handbook as well. Or again, having the opportunity to email me and I can share those to you. So I'm going to go with some of the most common indicators. These are going to be your risk behaviors, actions to kind of look into and be aware. So a person feeling afraid to break up with their partner can be a really big indicator, and I have it on top of my list. Perhaps you notice that your friend or someone that's close to you that you've seen dating has been spending less time with their friends or less time in the house or less time with their activities and interests or things that they used to enjoy the most before they met this partner. You start to notice partner maybe puts them down quite a bit more often than before, or name calling, or just insults them even in public. Or perhaps some of that could be happening in private. So we also want to be observant of that happening in my own household, if they are having visits together or whatever that looks like. You may also want to be aware of constantly having a young person be worried about making the other person feel angry or not bringing certain conversations to their attention because it might make them unhappy or just not very glad that they brought it to attention, or just completely angry about it, or they know that they're just going to act out if they do bring it to attention, or they're maybe conversating to you, or you begin to feel like they're constantly checking on their phones quite often because their partner has given themselves permission to be on their phone, emails, social media, have access to all of their passwords without them actually giving permission. You also begin to notice that your friend or a family member is slowly being isolated from you and family, or just really any kind of support system or circle that is surrounding that person. They're slowly just not connecting with them anymore. Or you might hear conversations of a friend telling you, well, my partner, just kind of wants to watch out for me or take care of who's connecting with me or who's texting me. So, I gave him permission to block people on my social media, or, not have as many friends that I have on there, or like pictures that maybe my partner doesn't like, or sharing posts, or even posting anything on my social media, unless my partner does that on their own without giving me any permission or say. Could be possibly showing some extreme insecurities in their relationship, or could be feeling like their partner has been showing to be a lot more jealous than before. And of course, that could exert to someone having very possessive behaviors towards them. So wanting them to be spending 24/7 with them, answering all their texts at all times and their calls. Those are some signs for possessiveness and manipulation. So definitely be careful with some of those warning signs. You start to notice some explosive change in temper, swing of moods, or maybe your young person is very withdrawn or just isolated in the rooms all the time or just constantly on their phone. Be aware of some of those indicators, especially if you see them together and they're just really, really, really not able to connect with anything that's around them. It's just between them two. That could be a good indicator of seeing what's happening between them, so observing that relationship. Or you start to see your friend, like they're constantly feeling like they need to check in with their partner, sharing pictures of where they're at, texting their partner and letting them know, this is who I'm with, sharing my location of where I'm at. That way it decreases the feeling of the other partner feeling insecure or feeling like they don't have enough trust, or just letting them know, I just want to know where you're at because I am concerned for your safety or I care for you. So notice some of those things, especially if they're gradually changing over the time that they're dating, or again, we can sometimes see it with our friends as well. If we do start to see maybe some unnoticeable, unexplained injuries or marks, we definitely want to bring those to attention in a safety way, because there could be minimizing that their partner actually hit them or hurt them in that way. It could be, well, I fell, I hit the door, I'm very clumsy, it happens all the time. Those little indicators that are changing where they're constantly minimizing or making an excuse for somebody else's choice to hurt them, especially when it's physical. You may also start to notice that they could be showing a lot more signs of stress or sadness, or just feeling like they're not doing enough to keep their partner happy, which can then lead on to them having less attention at school, grades are dropping, or there's a lot of reasons of skipping class. So again, that poor attendance, or meeting new people as their friends groups that you've never met before, which can be either unhealthy friends or healthy friends. So ultimately just kind of observing if any of those are intentionally gradually getting worse, or just being completely withdrawn to the point where you absolutely have no space or time to ask any questions, because we want to make sure we can make that time to bring this to attention and express how concerned we are for them. And then always acknowledge that some of the cues here that you have on the list are not always going to be physically visible. So we always want to be aware of conversations, thoughts, whatever is shared at the dining table. If there are some privacy and or kind of rules that are happening as a disciplining way at home, like times that the phone's not being used, or the times that the friends can come visit. Those are some things that can also help in starting those conversations by creating that safe space, and that secureness of them being able to trust you and gain that perspective of like, these are things that I should not be tolerating and are not very healthy for me and or are affecting me in the long run. It's also important to know that often the person who is presenting these and many forms of controlling unhealthy behaviors may not realize that they are being harmful to the partner or just unhealthy and potentially abusive. I mean, sometimes a person who is causing harm may believe that they're simply doing it because they want to be a perfect partner, or they've seen it modeled through their own parents. And this is the way, a second partner should be acting, or this is the way that I should love and care for my partner, which I feel is appropriate. But as adults and as healthy role models, we want to really let them know that such behavior and choices they're making could be inappropriate and or sometimes criminal. And really, they need to understand and feel like there's some uncontrollable emotions and feelings that you're not really working through a healthy manner, that we can kind of plug in some help, right? And maybe we need to have a conversation with parents, your parents. All of us get together and talk about things that have been concerning to me when I've seen you guys present, or when I've seen you guys interact. That way we're expressing concerns and having those conversations in a way that doesn't feel tactful or pointing fingers, or just very to a point where someone may just not feel comfortable talking to you about what's happening because they haven't recognized or acknowledged that it's not healthy for them to be acting that way, or treating the other person that way. All right. So here in the last minutes, we're going to talk about how do we help someone in an unhealthy relationship. And this could be that friend, or that can be the family member, or you as a provider, you as that role model, you watching this video, whoever that may be, or you as a young person, how can I help my peers and or my friend really start the conversation and expressing some of those concerns. Okay, so if you think or know that a friend or someone you know is doing or is in an unhealthy relationship, and things are just absolutely not getting better, you've seen a lot more harming to one person than the other, and really just don't know what to do or how to even start it, or normal feelings are that you want help, but you're scared to lose them as a friend or as a peer or as a relative, and or feel like it's not your place to step in. All of these feelings are normal, I will tell you, but what's important is starting those conversations where we are real, honest, and truthful with them, and really expressing the assurance of safety concerns, and creating a trustful, safe space where you can have these conversations. So always think about those safety concerns, not only for the person being victimized, but also your own safety when you're talking to someone who's causing the harm to the other partner. So always be aware of that, your own safety and the victim's safety as well, like what could be in that surrounding if you are talking to the abusive person. So we want to start with gentle, open-ended questions. How have things been going between you two or you and your partner lately? I've noticed that you guys haven't posted any posts on your social media, or I've noticed that I'm not friends with you on social media, or it could be an open-ended question where I've noticed that your phone has been going off quite a bit. You must be popular. Is there something you want to share, you want to talk to me about? Or you could be bringing in a question, or I've noticed you haven't been attending any of our volleyball games or basketball games in school, or haven't seen you in debate club recently. Are you doing okay? Is there something that I can support you with, or you want to talk about it? The goal is to really keep these questions to be open, right? To be able to provide, again, that trustful, honest, and real space that can hopefully lead for them to open up and explain to you or admit some feelings of distress, concerns, maybe worriedness, or things that just are not feeling well or are not going well for them in that relationship. So on this slide, you're going to see a list of how to start that conversation very calmly. So asking the questions, being very supportive in a non-judgmental way. Again, we're not blaming the victim to the person who is causing harm, and we know that's causing harm. We don't want to always just express the healthy behaviors. We want to address the unhealthy behaviors with them. My concerns, what's been visible to me, what I have noticed, to establish a pattern so they can hopefully recognize and acknowledge that they have made some unhealthy choices of treating someone in a very inappropriate or disrespectful way. So we want to do that, of course, after we've established a report and a safe space. People experiencing an unhealthy relationship may not take their friends' advice always or very seriously, but honestly, like telling a friend you're worried can really plant an important seed, right? An important starting point for them to hopefully build a rapport with you and trust you, where that can lead on to those open conversations that can initially be real and just be able to help you safety plan with them and allow them to know that they're worth, and understanding that these are some things that we don't want to tolerate in any form of relationship. If your friend decides to ultimately break up with their partner, which we know breakups can be very difficult and hard, or if the abusive person has acknowledged some of those unhealthy behaviors and they might want to, in a healthy way, take some space apart, we want to be there for support and create that safe plan where you're acknowledging some risk or some actions that maybe a partner could escalate to or could react to if there is a breakup. So there's always an intention to safety plan, even if we are deciding to do a breakup or have a breakup, because those can be emotionally hard and sometimes risky and or scary to do. So we want to acknowledge and validate when someone is feeling that way and they want to do a plan as to breaking up if they are ready to. And of course, being there to support that process. So keeping that conversation friendly, not placing that blame, again, non-judgmental way with a friend or a family member. It's never the victim's fault for the choice that the other partner is making. Allow your friend to build that self-autonomy back, to make their own decisions with your support right behind them, right? If they are deciding to break up, I want to support you through that breakup at the beginning and at the end. Offer some solutions, options. They're not really to-do lists. You're not telling them what to do. You're really offering that that perspective of solutions to them and what could help them through the process if it's not just them being supported by you. And expect more conversations to be ongoing in the future. They don't just stop with one conversation. The goal, if they are open-ended and trustful and real, that they can continuously to happen. And that can really create some meaningful and courageous conversations in the future, which can turn very, very, very well, I think, in helping prevent or helping share awareness to someone if they are being victimized or know someone who is. And lastly, on that one, which I don't see on that point, but learning about your resources and connections that you have in your own community is important as well. So I think with everything happening in this world, it's clear that we all need love and social connections. So these are some of the signs that I want to intentionally focus on as well for our next class, February 23rd, acknowledging some of these unhealthy and unhealthy signs, unhealthy signs. I'm sorry about that. And knowing that these are just some to set some foundations of expectations of where we start shifting culture and recognizing that maybe some of these signs have been showing amongst my friends. I've seen it across some dating partners in my school, or even with my family members in the household. So hopefully this will be a very fun conversation to have these signs. And these are brought to you with One Love Foundation, which is part of the content that we get the privilege to share with some of our youth prevention programming. So if you ever hear some of these signs from many of a young person in the Yakima Valley area, our YWCA is teaching and talking about those as part of our relationship health education. So again, teen dating violence can definitely have a profound impact on a lifelong health for young people as well as adults, and overall safety and well-being of a person. So unhealthy relationships can really start early and last for a lifetime, but I think having the starting and knowing that it's never too early to start these conversations is crucial. The good news is that this kind of violence is 100% preventable. There's programs that are a great resource to you all as a young person, as an adult, as a provider, as someone who's currently dating, please know they are available. The ones that I'm showing right now on the screen are the top ones that we have for national resources, like Love is Respect, National Domestic Violence Hotline, the National Sexual Assault Hotline, and the Trevor Project. So those are some of the top ones on there, as well as One Love Foundation. So joinonelove.org is how you can reach out to their services. So these are leading national campaigns that can be a way to connect through text or chat, or utilize some handful of resources or exercises on their own social media pages and as well as their home pages. So know that's available. And other resources that are actually local, like our YWCA, you see our crisis line on there, Aspen Victim Advocacy Services. So they work with any victim advocacy program or service that you might need. Those are also brought to you by a crisis hotline that you can reach out to. NAMI for the National Alliance of Mental Health Illnesses. You can text or call them as well. 211 can be a very good community resource that can make those connections to you as a young person or as an adult in that matter. We also have our local lighthouse. So they do prevention, education, and advocacy for sexual assault, medical needs, as well as domestic violence. And they also do support for young people like you watching today. So utilize these resources as those options to make those connections and be able to provide them to someone in need. No, we are not all experts, and we often may not have all of the answers needed, but there is programs that can absolutely support you in that way, and are readily available. A lot of these crisis lines are 24/7. These national websites are active all the time. There's posts happening on their social media. So anything that comes to mind, the services and resources are available. And then just lastly, I just want to let you all, again, thank you for listening to today's conversation, this class. I want to provide this form of connection to me directly as our outreach coordinator here at the YWCA. You can follow us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. We also have TikTok. So if that's a way to also kind of view some videos, we do have those connections through there. My name is Danny. I did provide my email address, and there's also a general email that you can direct questions, comments, or anything to at hello@ywcayakima.com. So again, if there's something that brought attention to you or just some more questions with today's introduction to teen dating violence movement, teen dating violence definition, forms of abuse, or ways that you can help someone, or some common indicators, please feel free to send me an email, give me a call, or find us on social media, and we would be happy to make any connection needed. So that is all for us today. Hopefully you can join me next Wednesday. Share this video, like it, plug it into your safe drafts, whatever that looks like. Find us on our YouTube channel as well. If you want to revise that video once again, you are more than welcome to do that. So again, thank you for being here, and wish you all a great rest of your afternoon and a great rest of this week. Thank you.